Mountain God needs no donations, only worship please. Chapter 53. Fan fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. Issei Hyudou eyed his supposed rival with naught but disdain. Truly his rival was lacking in all manner of things. Ddraig, how are you free of your bondage? Albion roared with the light from the pale, almost marble-like gems shining with the fury and disbelief. Albion clearly had its seeing rival doing what they had previously desired most. Oh, they most assuredly wanted to kill the other, and to that extent, they pushed their wielders to keep up their vendetta after more than a millennium. But beyond that, they above all else wanted to be free of their chains within their respective sacred gear. So seeing Ddraig all but prancing about and clearly flexing its muscles as it took each step to as though it constantly needed to stretch. Oh, how it fucking galled Albion beyond reasoning. In response to Albion's demand, Ddraig only had this to say. Because you are a bottom bitch noob with no levels and Moria cheats. He said with zero shame, and Issei's face twitched at how they had devolved into insults, so he squeezed his legs around his mount. Enough partner, attack. He said, raising the massive spear, and blindingly quick Ddraig lunged forward with Issei sliding down Ddraig's long draconic neck as Chow Chow roared and slammed aside the massive dragon head that attempted to bite him into pieces using his tuki. He wasn't able to withstand the massive momentum of Issei's legendary spear that swept him to the side and getting sent flying through the demonic forest of the underworld. Even as Ddraig and Issei like a perfectly oiled machine realigned themselves, so Issei was at the end of Draig's neck and Ddraig flew with powerful beats of its crimson wings toward Chow Chow. Valley wasn't interested in being left out. And he most definitely didn't want his destined rival that interested him so damn much to steal his kill. Don't ignore me, Red Dragon Emperor. Valley roared as he flew with Albion's wings of divine dividing burning with a pale blue light to push him at great speed so he would catch up. Issei's cold green eyes snapped to him and with a snarl armored fist met the oversized spear. But the thing was, Issei wasn't alone, so even as the blow was seemingly equal, Ddraig wasn't factored in, to say nothing of being mounted mate getting the leverage to use Issei's core strength. But when you were riding a massive legendary intelligent dragon that you had fought countless battles with. Even as Issei purposefully growled and made a corona of light form around him to lock Valley in a match of wills and pure strength. Before Valley could react and break apart the stalemate, he was bitch-smacked by the truck-sized massive serpentine tail of Ddraig, who burst into laughter as they returned to charge after Chow Chow, who was fleeing to help George free of his opponent so they could flee the battle. But as Chow Chow closed in on, to George, who was fighting, but more like merely surviving his battle with Arthur, who could cut through his dimension-shifting nonsense with the strongest holy sword. They were interrupted by loud chimes and hymns. The very dark sky of the underworld burned brightly with holy light as the hymns and eye-gouging light made devils and other supernatural beings cringe at its glare. From the dense light came heaven. Not a squad of angels. Nor an army of the heavens' heavenly host. No, from the blinding light came dense holy fluffy clouds as the holy choir of heaven rang through the underworld as heaven's very own holy gates broke into the underworld. The corrupted forest burned with purple and golden flames under the holy light of heaven's arrival, and as the hymns and song of heaven grew to a crescendo, the heavenly gates opened with the sound of angelic voices humming as from the open gates came 4 figures. Each bore a dozen wings upon their back that held them aloft, each wore holy armor that clung to their perfected forms, and lastly, a golden halo pure of heart glowed above their heads. They were the 4 great seraph, Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and Raphael. And behind the 4 great seraphs came the heavenly host in its entirety. Not for millennia has heaven made such a move and brought so many of their people to a single sight. They had all but emptied heaven of its angels. Both the pure made by Yahweh himself and the newer generation of angels had come into force and were fully willing to die this day and at this time. For the opportunity to resurrect their holy father was worth moving the entire race toward one last grand battle. Partner. This is getting to be too much. Ddraig growled errantly as he idly swatted a mortar round out of the air that came too close to him from the army of dwarves several miles away. But as though in answer to that very statement, more people arrived. Team/Dog arrived at the battle via swirling shadows and ice. The Satan Surzex Lucifer and Seraphol arrived in force with their peerages ready for war after censors picked up heaven's invasion. The Fallen led by Azazyel and a cackling Kokobel teleported over. And then in unison, more of the stronger humans that bore Moria and Tiamat system began arriving in various ways. Some riding great and terrible beasts of legend that tore their way to the underworld. Some tear through the void with infinitely sharp energy, and the rest teleported into the underworld via various forms of magic. Issei. Make a team party for the humans so we can get copies of loot. A mage yelled at Issei, who broke into guffaws of deep laughter seeing some people he had partied up with before in the depths of the dungeon of Ororio. And like so many times before, Issei Hyudou took upon the responsibility of being the foreguard as he mentally opened up a raid party for the surroundings, and his mind was filled with the silent pings of dozens. Hundreds of humans joined his team that came around his mounted form. And then the moment they joined the raiding party, the mages, healers and other magic users began stacking dozens and eventually hundreds of buffs upon Issei and Ddraig, making them both dozens of times more powerful, durable and all other things. Fuck the other factions. Issei roared as he pointed his spear at Chow Chow, who inevitably froze under the gaze of all the factions here to kill him. For the waifus. He roared, and then with Florida Man and his army of super gators the humans charged in battle through the seemingly infinite tide of trash monsters that the user of Annihilation Maker had filled the surroundings as the factions arrived.